Hello. Today I want to talk to you about how I create monsters, either for my player characters to fight if I'm running a game, or for my characters to fight if I'm writing a story. The first thing to think about when you're creating a monster is why you're creating this monster. Is it there to just populate your world? As an example, if you are gazing across the savannah and you see the bucks jumping over the, waving grasses, and the sun is warm on their backs and their blue horns flare upright as they leap into the sunset. Cool. But that's not creating a monster that is going to have an impact on the story. That's like creating scenery. You do not need to worry too much about the stats behind these creatures. Obviously, it makes your world richer if you know things like how they breed and what they eat on and what preys on them and all of these kinds of things. But it is only really important that they fit the rest of your world, that they work within the framework of your world and the specific environment within which they are. But if your characters are going to interact in a meaningful way with a creature, then you need a lot more detail around them. One of the big questions that you need to answer is the creature that you're creating tied into the magic system? If you have a creature that is tied into your magic system, what are you showcasing with this? Are you demonstrating that magic can be instinctively used? It does not need training. Are you using this creature to fuel your magic? If somebody consumes a part of the creature, do they gain more magic? Can people replicate what the animal does? Is it a case of like magicians have watched this animal do its activities in the past and now they have learned to replicate that as a spell? So you have to ask yourself why the creature can use magic and what it does with that magic. I have the Blue-ron bird in my world, which is a creature that uses magic to trace blood. It can ingest somebody's blood and then track that prey to find the person again. Now, this evolved naturally as a means of the bird of tracking wounded prey. Subsequent to this, humans have started using Blue-rons in order to send messages because that's what humans are like. So my purpose in creating the Blue-ron was both to be a messenger bird that people could meaningfully interact with, but it was also to show that my magic is a natural part of the world. Not just humans have magic, it is inherent to some creatures as well. And that, of course, has implications for the larger magic system. What you also have to consider when you're creating a monster is what natural abilities are you going to give it and what is it going to be based on. I am a big fan of basing monsters on things that we can see in our own world. Not just because it's easier, but because it allows you to then populate the region that monster comes from with things that would naturally fit it from our world. So you don't have to create an entire new biome. Let's say, for example, that you create a giant snake that's in the desert. There are snakes that are in the desert. If you use one of them as a template for your snakes in the desert, then you can populate the rest of the desert with animals that are native to our deserts. And that allows you to have a rich and diverse biome that still feels real, that feels as though these things could have evolved together to form the framework of your world. Whereas, let's say you take a polar bear or a bear of any sort and you dump it in the desert, it feels incongruous. It feels out of place with the rest of the environment. So my approach is generally to take something from our world and then either mix it with something else or alter it in certain ways to either work with my magic system or to be giant or both sometimes. in the case of my Masuroxy. Sometimes I will go completely off the beaten path. The Yanari monster that exists in the Kisangi Desert, that is actually based on a blue spotted ray from the ocean, so it's completely incongruous with its desert surroundings. But what I did was I obviously made it air breathing, and then I changed its skin so that rather than having fish scales, it has a smooth skin that allows it to sail through the sand at incredible speeds and hide in the sand with its unique coloring. I also made it a copper-blooded animal because I found the idea of it bleeding blue blood very fascinating, and that is also what the tribes that live in the desert use in order to make blue dye. Which brings me to the other thing that you need to think about when you are creating a monster. What impact does it have on the people in your story? Much as we enjoy world building, our readers aren't reading exclusively for the world building. They experience our world through characters, through people. If you create this amazing animal, but it has no impact on people, it's not going to matter because it's not going to feature in the story in a meaningful way. How does the animal impact people? Is it used to make things? Is it a beast of burden? Is it used to carry messages? Can it be hunted for food? Does it represent a continuous threat to human villages? And it is something that needs to be dealt with on a continuous basis. And the last thing that I always think about when I'm creating any animal is how does it procreate? If an animal does not procreate easily, it will eventually probably cease to exist. Also, procreation is a very deep motivating force. And it can have all kinds of fascinating animal behaviors associated with it. Scorpions, for example, have this intricate mating dance that looks as though they're attacking each other, with their claws hooking into each other and dancing around each other, and all kinds of like really intricate movements that really does look as though they're climbing into one another and having a fight. But in fact, it's a mating ritual. The male emu builds a nest and tries to attract the female emu to come to his nest so that they can mate and she can lay eggs in his nest. So he builds this nest to try and attract her attention. This kind of behavior around mating rituals provides you with an opportunity to not just showcase parts of your world, but really provide interesting observational points for your characters to observe and thus to show your readers the intricacy and depth of the biome of your world. So that is my thoughts on monster creation. You need to think about the terrain that you're in. You need to think about what additional animals are around it and how do they fit its biome. You need to think about whether it's part of your magic system in any way, either as a source for magic or as an instinctive magic user. And you need to think about how it mates and what the rituals are around that mating process. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit the thumbs up button. If you would like to support this channel, links to my Ko-fi down below. And if you want to join my world building community, links to the Discord server down below as well. And I will see you soon for another episode of Just in Time World.